Tonight we continue our segments with this year's candidates for Boston City Council. Our guest is one of the candidates running for the seat being vacated by Tim McCarthy in District 5. The district includes Hyde Park and Readville, along with most of Roslindale and Mattapan. To tell us about her candidacy is Cecily Graham. Thank you very much for being with us, Cecily.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Talk about your district background here, your family, and what was like going to school in this district.
Yes, absolutely. So I come from a Caribbean American background, with my mom being Jamaican and my dad Haitian, and I've watched them in their journey to navigate to citizenship. And being a first gen, of course, that exposed me to all the trials that they had to go through in maintaining a family, taking care of family back home, and also helping to raise me as someone in the community that's a prominent community member. So, that's an area, of course, that I believe that many people of the district can identify with, having parents that are from Caribbean or of Caribbean descent.
Now, you are a teacher right now in your day job.
Yes.
You went to Boston Public Schools. You teach in a fairly affluent community.
Yes.
Does that open your eye to things that you come back to Boston, you say, wait a minute, why can't we do something different here? Absolutely,
and that's part of the reason why I'm running, because I've seen the disparities firsthand. One, in the Boston Public School system, being a product of BPS, though I have benefited from the advances through the system, I also see ways that we can improve, being a teacher of a MECO district. And that's something I would like to address on the council in terms of, the after effects of zoning laws and redlining. And even though redlining is something that is technically illegal now, we still see certain institutions in place that creates these disparities and the gaps in the community.
Well, this is a district that does have some good schools, whether they're district or charter,
yes.
But there are some other schools, it's been a struggle to turn them around, and there are a lot of people, I think, especially in Mattapan, saying, our choices in schools, there aren't that many good schools that we can get our kids into. How would you like to change that?
I would like to see more quality of accessible education in the area, maybe exploring another school being brought to the area. I do hear that coming out of the community a lot, and we need it. And with myself having the experience of having to travel outside of the district for quality education, on average, our children after elementary age are traveling about 15 hours average weekly to obtain quality education, and that's an area that I would like to address, of course, with transportation equity being something that's a priority as well, because the train and the buses have to be on time in order to get us to school on time, and these are the tools, education and transportation, that helps to elevate us economically.
This is BNN News. We're talking with Cecily Graham, candidate for City Council in District 5. Cecily, transportation is also a problem for grown-ups in Hyde Park. A lot of congestion, very time-consuming. Maybe it costs too much money, especially if you're getting on commuter rail at Readville. Would you like to change some of that in some way?
Absolutely. What you see now is an average between $128 to about $400 overall for cost of transportation. And with that, folks are still having a hard time getting around. We're still depending on rideshare to get to and from. And that's something that I would love to address on the council, make a priority for our community. Of course, with commuter rail costing more in certain parts of the district than others, that's something I would like to address as well, to ensure that people can get in and around the district equitably, and addressing the fact that we have cyclists and walkers, and everyone needs to be able to have the access to safe streets to get around, and just making sure that everyone's included in this moment of transition when we move forward with this, definitely.
What about housing needs in this district? What do you think is most important right now?
What's most important is having housing that's affordable. Right now, what we see is a district that the per capita income is about $33,000 to $34,000, and the average cost of housing is between $1,600 to $1,800. So you're looking at a percentage of about 60% for housing costs, which is ridiculous in terms of, for people who are parents, for people who are trying to buy homes one day. And of course, home ownership is something that I champion, being a past organizer on the Community Preservation Act that brings in about $20 million annually towards affordable housing. I believe home ownership, which we know in this country, builds wealth, and we need more tools, more paths to home ownership so that we can thrive economically in the community.
Well, there are developers with some plans, some of them fairly ambitious for housing, especially near commuter rail in District 5, and some community resentment about it. This is too much traffic congestion. What do you want to do?
Well, what I hear mostly is the concerns of the residents being projects are popping up everywhere and no one really knows what's going on. The information is out there, and what I would like to be is a connecting factor. I would like to bridge the gaps and bring that information to the people who need it the most. And also allow members of our community to benefit from these developments and not feel like they're being pushed out because of the high cost. We're not anti-development, and I constantly say that. It's just about having the conversation and having maybe more community engagement and more tools to get that information out there to make people more aware of what's available to them, what's going on, and how they can have a voice at the table.
Well, as I'm sure you've heard, people are being pushed out, especially along the Fairmont Indigo corridor. Should there be something like a kind of rent control to protect them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I support rent control, and I understand both sides of the story, right? Being a community advocate, I've worked with both landlords and I've worked with tenants, with myself being a tenant. But however, I do believe there needs to be a cap on how often landlords are allowed to charge over or add to the cost of housing over a span of a year. And that way we can ensure that our residents aren't displaced.
I want to ask you one more thing about your background. You worked with Ayanna Pressley for a while, right?
Yes, absolutely.
What was that like?
It was amazing, actually. I learned a lot on the campaign trail. It's actually where I began my work as a community organizer, door knocking, phone banking, and I learned a lot being in her shadows, and of course, inspired to continue my run in the community as an activist to champion these issues in policy and creating change where it needs to be done in the community.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Cecily
Thank you
Graham,
for having
candidate for
me.
City Council in District 5.